All right, ladies and gents. Welcome to our great election pre-show brought to you by SchezzWho and the Arrington Gavin show. It is election pre-show. I'm your one of your co-hosts, Arrington Gavin, host of the Arrington Gavin show. Joining me is my good buddy, host of the political YouTube show SchezzWho, Mr. Conrad Schesventer. Conrad, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Mr. Arrington. I'm doing pretty good on this Sunday evening. I hope you're doing just as well as I.
Look, man, doing great. First and foremost, man, have you been getting a lot of rest? 'Cause I don't know about you. I am swamped. First, we've had so many functions happening across the Hampton Roads area, the Commonwealth, but specifically the Hampton Roads area is where we resign. And there's been a lot of functions happening. One of us has recently hosted a debate show, which a debate in the Hampton Roads area, which we rarely have had debates. We've had forums, right? When each candidate will get to share a little bit about their platform, but we rarely have debates, man. So Conrad, I got to give you your flowers for hosting. I will say the first debate in a long time, to my opinion. I think the first debate since what? The last person I could think of is when Jen Kiggin had a challenger in the last race. That was the last debate that I can recall that was at least publicly.
Was that against Missy Cotter?
Yes, Missy Cotter Smile. Yep, you're absolutely right. And so when I saw that, I'm like, man, it's been a minute. So I want to give you your flowers on that. I saw the numbers is continue to grow, and you held a debate of two individuals who happen to represent my city of Chesapeake. You had current Commonwealth attorney Matt Hamill, and you had his challenger incumbent Republican nominee Mr. David Mick. So if you don't mind, man, sharing a little bit about that debate, man. How was that experience for you?
It was a fantastic experience. And to be honest, I had never had something just like that. I hadn't had a live type of situation where I was bringing on people to have a debate. I've had people debate on the show before, but a couple weeks into it, that's all I really thought I was going to be able to get. I might get one of them, or perhaps one, and then the other candidate to do just a regular interview like I like to do on SchezzWho. But they both said that they were interested in doing a debate. So I thought that would just be on my show, but they actually pressed the idea of actually having it at a venue. And thanks to my good friend, Mr. Farley Perkins, who helped me find Gala's signature events in Chesapeake, we were able to lock down a Monday night actual debate. And I did want to lean into the debate format. I've seen, and you have seen, what forums are like. A candidate fields a question. They'll give their answer. Then you have the other candidate answer themselves. And it doesn't seem as adversarial. It's just, here's my opinion on this. But I wanted to lean into the idea of giving almost unlimited rebuttals, but I realized that was actually running a little long, so I had to speed that all up in the middle of the debate to one rebuttal per person, but it was definitely per person. I wanted each of them to have the ability to counter each other live. I think I did pretty well with that, and I look forward to hosting more in the future with that same format.
Oh no, it was great, and you had two great individuals. I happen to have the opportunity to know both of them personally, and had the moment to have them on my program as well as individuals. And like I said, both guys are class act individuals, as I mentioned. Again, I want to give you your flowers on that debate, but want to go into what the people are going to be expecting. We are doing, this is a 2-hour, this is live. Normally, I know you do yours live as well. I'm usually a pre-recorded individual, so we rarely really get the chance to do a lot of live things, but being that it's election season happening, not election season, election night is happening this Tuesday, November 4th. We always like to try and meet up for a pre-show gathering, just kind of recapping of what's happening across the Commonwealth as well as in the Hampton Roads area. In this 2 hours, we're going to be having a slew of guests on, just giving us their take on, the climate right now. We're going to hear from folks on the left, folks on the right, folks in the middle, which we love doing because that's the way the current climate is, right? That's the way society is made up of so many backgrounds. I myself, I consider myself an independent. I'm a centrist, right? And so I always have folks from both sides of the aisle. Conrad, I know you lean more on the left side, but you've had folks on both parties speak on your platform. So we're gonna give the folks again what they have probably missed, right? We have a big election happening here in the Commonwealth. We have a historic race. Let's start on the state level, right? Let's start on the highest level, the gubernatorial race. We have two individuals: former Virginia Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, Democratic nominee for governor, running against current Lieutenant Governor, Republican nominee Winsome Earl Sears. It's a historic race, man. Give me your take on this race between the two.
Historic in the literal sense.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever wins this will be the literal first woman governor of Virginia. So then it comes down to, you wanted to be a Democrat or do you want it to be a Republican? This version of Republican is different than, I guess, 10 years ago. We didn't have the concept of MAGA back in the day. Now we do. And Abigail hails from not only being a former congresswoman herself, she also used to work in the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
She has a lot of good connections. I think she's more seen as a middle of the roader top, still a Democrat, but still not as seen as very leftist, like myself. So that's just where they hail from politically. I think that it might be a pretty solid victory for Abigail. I have seen over the past month and a half what had seemed to be a little bit of a closing on the polls. But I think in the past week or so, that began to spread back in the direction of a sizable advantage for Abigail. And I think just today there was a Emerson poll which came out with her leading by 11 points over Winsome Earl Sears. And if that is something that is true for a statewide field going into Tuesday, I think that would almost possibly bring a solid chance at a top three tickets go the Democrat way because of a poll spread that big.
Yes, well, I'm glad you actually pulled, because I had pulled up that Emerson post on me. I'm looking at the numbers right here. I think it has Abigail at 52% to Winsome's 46%. Gonzala Hashmi, who is the Democratic nominee for lieutenant governor, she's a current state senator running against conservative talk radio host John Reed. That race is pretty close. Now, she is leading, but that race is pretty close, which, I mean, we spoke about it too on the before the shows, just in the past few days. It's pretty shocking seeing the rise in numbers, the numbers that he's putting on as the candidate. And honestly, I think at the end of the day, he is the solo Republican nominee, right? He's the candidate. So it's not really too shocking when I see the numbers starting to build up when it gets closer towards election day. Now, with his background, it probably is shocking because he's running against a politician, someone that actually serves in office rather than a person that talks about what occurs, talks on a conservative side. But the numbers are interesting for her race. Anything you want to throw in about that race between the two?
I had been lucky enough to actually see Senator Hashmi in person a couple of times at some events. And I had liked her candidacy from the primary, but I hadn't literally heard her speak until those times I was able to be in the same room with her, like at poolside cooking the first time I had a good chance to be in a room with Senator Hashmi. And I realized she's actually got some pretty good chops. She's a very good talent in a public speaking environment. I learned more about her history as a teacher. And I realized that she's talented enough that she could definitely win this just on her own merits, not just being on the Democrat ticket. John Reed, of course, he would have a version of talent because if you're in talk radio, you have a good persona and you have a good way with words. And that should be enough to also bring up some popular support if you're really going for a certain base. I think he is going for a certain MAGA base. I've seen him over the months on his Facebook prior to my commenting abilities on it being suspended, that he is a bit interesting to say the least when it comes to his commentary. He tried something out of the woodworks, I think 2 weeks or so ago, where he had a debate with an AI representation of Senator Hashmi.
Yeah, that was a bit that was a bit creepy.
Yeah.
That was a bit creepy, I will say.
Creepy. And prior to actually knowing that it was an AI debate, I didn't know that they had agreed. So I hear about a debate and I'm thinking, okay, hopefully I get a chance to see this. And I see a local resident in Portsmouth who I respect, because he is someone who has run for a candidate office himself a couple times, say that Reed won the debate. First, I didn't know there was a debate, and then I find out it was an AI debate. I'm like, come on, man.
Well, it was very RFK.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was very RFK. It was very RFK Jr. like, because I remember when they had the debate between I think it was Biden and Trump, and he did like a virtual debate. So he was in a room with people in a big screen, and after they said something, paused, and then he spoke. I mean, it was clever. I will say it was clever, because we know the common thing about independent candidates. They never get an opportunity to speak. They never get a platform. So I get it. He made a platform for himself. I get it. Now, in regards to the strategy that John Reed's team put on, I thought it was interesting. It was like I mentioned, creepy, but it was interesting because Senator Hashmi has rejected doing a debate between the two of them, and I had the opportunity to have Senator Hashmi on my program, and I didn't bring it
props
up,
to you on
but
that, by the
I
way.
did. I appreciate it. I didn't bring it up during the conversation, but I did hear a previous interview of the question being brought up, and she pretty much said, and I'll say it like this: I didn't bring up the question, but she threw in the answer anyway on my program, and she just basically said in her way, what I took was like, he's not qualified enough for me to even debate him. Like, it's going to be a waste of my time. Now, for a lot of left leaning or Democratic voters, they probably love that response. They want to see that drop, because Hashmi, even though she is an educator, she's very, she's a sharp lady. She throws jabs, like she throws hidden jabs to an extent, like I think the Democratic Party is missing and is wanting to pursue more of. So that was almost like a shot, like, nah, he's not even wasting my time. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's quite interesting. But could that hurt her chances? Could that hurt her in the polls? Because there might be some Democratic voters like, I actually want to I do want to see a debate. How do we know how we want to see it? Are you running from a fight to an extent? I mean, what am I wrong by thinking that, Conrad?
I have also run into the same, we can see it, where candidates that are seemingly in the lead try to shy away a bit from having a debate. I think they think that they have a better chance of holding on to their lead if they don't make a mistake visibly in public. And you see those who are behind really trying hard to have a debate because they need to catch up. So I was getting that belief from Reed. Of course, there was also a debate with Jay and Jason Miyares. I didn't know if that was something that had only recently been agreed upon. I think they may have had to have done a debate put on by a bar association, if I'm not mistaken, which I don't think the lieutenant governor debate had a rule where it had to happen. So in that case, if you're at the time leading by maybe more than 5 or so points, and I think there have been some polls that had Hashmi leading by that much over the course of the race at some point, you would just want to stay away from the possibility of making a mistake, which I don't think she needed to have been. I don't want to use the word fearful. How about overly cautious? Because I think she actually could do well in a debate, because I've seen her speak in person. And if you have someone who is that champion at the bit to have a debate, they might go over the top and make a mistake, which is what we saw in the governor debate.
Interesting. I guess I'm always on the side, man, and I've spoken with folks on the right and the left. I mean, and not even just candidates, but strategists per se, right? And I always share my thought process is, if I am running for office, right? If I'm running for office, I don't expect my journey to be easy whatsoever. So there needs to be moments where you should enter in the lion's den. So yes, we have forums here where there might be conservative leaning groups that host forums or debates. There on one end, it might be Democratic groups or more liberal groups that will host forums, host debates. And so if a person from that opposing side attends, their team member or somebody high in that, in that party might say, no, don't do it. You're walking into, it's a trap. It's a trap. Well, hello. It is politics. I mean, politics is a trap for itself, right? So it's like, why avoid if it's that big of a deal, right? If it's or not that big of a deal, but if it's to that level where I don't want to show up, to me, I'm like, show up. And if you're anxious on how the setting will be, well, guess what? How about you bring your team so you can mesh off the outside noise? And then they're gonna be like, well, what if the host is being biased? Well, you know what? Call out the host. And if they're, I'm just saying, to me, I feel as though avoiding a fight is like what they always say. If you stay quiet, sometimes staying quiet doesn't make a huge difference, right? Sometimes it does. I'll say it like that. Sometimes staying quiet can make a difference, but in a sense where there's an issue happening, you don't, the reason why they're running is because they avoided staying quiet. So it's like, why avoid coming from that? That's just always been kind of like my little pet peeve. I hear the side of folks that's on, strategist perspective and this and the other, but I'm just like, I don't know, man. I just think that it's in this climate, show up, like just show up.
I kind of want the same. I would have wanted to see a public on television lieutenant governor debate. I think it not only would have been good television, it would have been informative as well, which is good for the public. That's why you don't have to rely so much on the idea of coattails. Like if Reed needs Sears to have a big day for him to have a big day, people could have just as much of a chance of winning outright if they make a name for themselves large enough to be voted for outright this upcoming Tuesday. That's my stance. I would just agree, even if I'm the left side of the aisle, you're more toward the center. Regardless, it would be great to have our opinions put forth in front of the people so they can make a decision too.
It's interesting. I'm actually for our listeners and those who are watching us right now on YouTube. I'm saying listeners like if I'm in radio. We're live on YouTube and Facebook. So for the viewers there that are tuning into this program, oh great! I see our guest on. Our very first guest was trying to stretch out some time. So I have a good buddy of mine, a mutual friend, because I know Conrad has been a guest on his program as well. But a good friend of mine, Mr. Clarence Khalil Neely. He is a local radio host of the Crusade for Christ, one of probably the longest running program on this East Coast. I mean, literally, he can correct me if I'm wrong on that. In addition to that, he has done work with Poolside Cooking, which is a successful program here in the area too. And we hosted a program some years back. We called a Viewpoint, which was a weekly program, which stands for Viewpoint. And that ran for about 8 months. And he's always been just a good buddy. And I'm always thrilled to have his perspective on things like this. So let me go ahead and bring him on. I think we make sure his audio and everything is all good. Let's see if we have him. Hey, Clarence, are you there?
I see the spin.
I think he's having some technical difficulties. So he's going to come right back on. But we will probably have him on for about 5 minutes because we're rolling through guests, y'all, for this 2 hours. We have a slew of guests coming on, and we want to make sure we give everybody a good amount of time. But again, I want to also we have a structure going on, so we might not have too much time with Clarence. But we spoke about the lieutenant governor's race. Now let's move it on to the very end. Before I leave this lieutenant governor's race actually started off with controversy because John Reed was not the fan favorite, still is not the fan favorite of per se the majority of the Republican Party. They did not want, the governor himself said he really did not want John Reed as the candidate. So that was kind of like a back and forth. Yeah, that was a back and forth happening. And he's a candidate now, but to my knowledge, a good number of Republicans are not too satisfied with John Reed being in that position. that being said, John has spoken about that. He's here to stay. He's, forgot about that. He's like, look, we're here to win this election. So to an extent, there has been controversy, drama on both sides of the aisle. So you had that going on in the Republican Party. And I forgot to mention in the beginning of the show, this is probably the most diverse ticket on both sides that we've ever witnessed, right? You have on the Republican side, you have Winsome Earl Sears, who is born and raised in Jamaica, first African-American woman, I believe, elected as lieutenant governor, first woman elected as lieutenant governor. And then you have John Reeves, openly gay man, who I believe is the first nominee, and if he wins, will be the first openly gay elected official, I believe, in the state of the state of Virginia. And then you have Jason Myers, who is a Hispanic male. So again, diverse on the right, and then on the left, you have Gonzalo Hashmi, who was the first Muslim American elected in Virginia statewide. And then if she is elected, she will make history again as the first. So it's diversity happening on both sides, which I love to see, right? I feel like that's a part of the growth here in our world, is seeing that, hey, this can happen, this can exist. I do want to I'll talk about the lieutenant governor, not lieutenant, the Commonwealth attorney, not Commonwealth attorney. What am I saying? Attorney General. There we go. Attorney General. Jeez, I'm exhausted. I see.
If we were talking about multiple states, it would be Commonwealth's attorneys.
Commonwealth's attorney. There we go. Commonwealth
how
attorney.
The plural works. Yeah.
That's right. Look, I see we have our guest, Mr. Clarence Khalil Neely on. Let me go ahead and bring him on real quick, because I know we have a second guest that's lining up backstage too. So I already had the introduction about Mr. Clarence Khalil Neely. Clarence, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
I see you got Conrad. Wow, man, this is going to be an awesome talk. What
Absolutely.
is going on?
Well, look, Clarence, we're gonna have you on for probably about 5-6 minutes, but I appreciate you taking the time out your busy schedule to come here on this live special, man. As I mentioned earlier, you're in radio. You've been in radio for many years. You host a program, Crusade for Christ, here in Hampton Roads area.
Yes.
Give us your take on how crucial this election is, how the race is happening across the Hampton Roads area, but specifically in the Commonwealth. What's your take? What do you would love to share with the viewers here?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, like I put on a couple of my Facebook posts, I'm just excited that we're going to have a woman governor. Okay, depending on, honestly, whether it's Abigail Spanberger or Lieutenant Governor Winston Sears, I'm just excited it's going to be a woman governor. And like I always tell people, I'm neither Democrat or Republican. I'm a solutionist, thanks to, Kay James. She gave me that. Kay James, former Secretary of the Commonwealth. But I really believe that with the political temperature right now, from the federal government all the way down to the cities, women leadership will help, give it that, kind of ease that temperature, kind of take the heat off of things right now. Because I just saw a post to Abigail Spanberger. I haven't really done any research on the post yet, but I'm going to. But she said in a statement that if she wins, she's not going to do nothing with Donald Trump. I was like, whoa, okay. So I kind of like that. I mean, I like that bold step like that. That was a very bold step. I think that's where Winston Sears is making her big mistake. She is too tied to Donald Trump right now. She's too tied with him. And even a lot of Republicans are getting tired of Donald Trump stuff. Okay, it's the MAGs that the real far right who's just going, and they're down to the wire. The far right guys are down to the wire with Trump too. So don't get it twisted. It's just, you got to be careful of the optics. What you see on television, everything, it's not really what it is. Because remember, I'm on both sides of the aisle. I hear it from the Republicans, the MAGAs, and I hear it from the Democrats. That's the beauty of my political stance.
I want to throw this in, Conrad. I want to ask you, what do you think about this take? So with the hold on tight. With the with both sides, right? I feel as though that you see on the left you have the progressives, right? Because you have issues happening within the Democratic Party. Then on the right, you have back and forth happening within the Republican Party. And I've spoken with elected officials. Privately, they've said, hey, look, we have more issues going on in our own party than we do on the opposing sides. MAGA is that progressive movement of the Republican Party, where you have the kind of, and I use that as an example because you have the establishment really not too fond of, say, the MAGA movement per se. There's a gentleman, his name is Royce White. He's running for Senate out in Minnesota. He's a former NBA player. He's a Republican candidate, or Republican nominee for U.S. Senate, and he brought up that when I heard in the conversation, I'm just like, that's actually pretty interesting. But I mean, I can believe that, because each party is not, playing by the rules per se, right? Folks can say, well, look, if we kind of avoid this side, we can kind of be more cordial, be more bipartisan. I mean, we see what's happening in New York, where a lot of the establishment is not too fond of Zohran Mamdani, even though he is leading. And I've always said, to me, if the Democratic Party is in rebuilding stage, okay, they're the losing party, right? They're in a rebuilding stage. If you want to try and win and get back at the top, you need to support whoever the people is pushing behind. One thing I'll give the Republican Party credit is that they will support regardless. They want to get that W at the end of the day. So anything you want to throw into that mix, or what's your take on that, Conrad?
We would like to see a day where that wanting the W is so fervent that they begin to rig a little bit of the process to help them out when it comes to, say, gerrymandering in Texas, as an example, which causes dominoes to fall, where in order to realize, hey, it seemed like you were stepping outside the lines to do that, so we're going to follow that playbook that you just did. In California, now Virginia is having special sessions to try to redistrict ourselves, and that would just make it look a little bit more blue, which is going to create another domino to fall, where Republicans have to seem like they're trying even harder to just win, when all you really had to do was, as they always used to call it, win on the battlefield of ideas. And I'm also thinking here of Zohran in New York City. If he didn't grow up under the Democrat Socialist banner and never adopted socialist, but adopted the same party planks of himself and just won the Democrat primary and was just only calling himself a Democrat, he would not be getting as much of the hate that he's getting, and he would probably be a little bit more popular. So words could cause some fear, and I think this is just causing us to pay a little bit more attention, care a little bit more than we usually would have. I think that largely should create some better outcomes if done the right way. And of course, the right way part is going to be subjective. And I hope it just doesn't get too painful.
I got you. Before we finish with Clarence, I want to mention what Clarence had said. Having women kind of taking care of the problem, and just to add on to that, Clarence, I think it's like, us men, we look at women as like the mothers, right? They know how to calm things down, X, Y, and Z. But I do enjoy seeing that we are witnessing history regardless, with women in this position. We will be witnessing history. One or the other, there will be a woman elected. Now, adding on to, you had said Spanberger not getting involved with Trump. I kind of agree with that. I mean, I see why folks will be upset, but here's the thing. She's running for to take care of folks in Virginia, right? I don't think she should start off by saying, well, I'm going after Trump. Well, Trump's in DC. Now, don't get me wrong. What happens in Washington trickles down to a state level, trickles down to a local level. So the effects that happens in Washington is happening, what will affect us in Virginia. But I think that's her role of playing it safe, saying, look, I'm not going to get to you the same old, everybody just going after Trump, going after him. I got to take care of issues now. Now, if there's something that we don't agree with and that's going to cause harm, which we are witnessing then hey, look, I'm going to say something about it. But I see that role kind of, playing it safe.
Yeah. Am I on?
Yes.
Yeah, you're on.
First of all, let's look at it like this. Virginia is connected to the hip with DC.
Very true.
And they got used to being very connected to the hip with Glenn Youngkin. Okay. And what's going to happen now, if Abigail gets a win, it's going to be a lot of friction at first. But remember this. Abigail Spanberger spent some time at the CIA. Okay. And the CIA are trained to make relationships. Okay, they're trained into that, and they're very good at it. The training they receive to do that, they're extremely good at it. So, and then plus, Abigail Spanberger is not a bad-looking white girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. Okay, not a bad-looking white girl. That's the kind of girls Donald Trump likes. And she'll know just how to play into that because the fact she was a CIA officer. So she's going to be, if she wins, she's going to be a very good governor. She's going to be a very, very good governor. And I hope to stay on the administration on the board that I'm on with her. I don't, I have to see how things are going to roll. And if Winston Sears takes it, same thing. I think Winston Sears is betting on winning and getting in the door. Just get in the door, get at that table as governor, and then she can start distance herself from Trump. But to get in that door, she needs that MAGA vote. She needs that MAGA vote to get up, and a little bit of black vote she has. But she's betting that once she gets in there, you're gonna see a lot more things she's gonna do for the least of us.
Interesting. Well, look, Clarence, again, my friend, I know we're going to run into each other on election night. I truly appreciate you taking the time out your busy schedule.
Where's the watch party?
Well, look, I got to keep that on the hush hush, man. I can't be just spreading this live, man.
We're talking about doing one at poolside cooking. We actually are talking about doing one at poolside cooking.
Well, you know what? I will try and make my rounds and stop by. I really will.
Yeah, I'll put it out there, though.
You have a great one, my friend. We have another guest lined up for us, but I appreciate you coming out.
See you, Conrad.
We'll talk soon.
All right, God bless.
All right, ladies and gents. Again, Mr. Clarence Neely. He says what he says, and it's on his mind. And I appreciate him coming on. We were having some technical difficulties with his audio, so I apologize if that was kind of hurting the ears. But we wanted to make sure we still had that conversation going. We have lined up backstage very, very patiently. I appreciate him not leaving us saying, I'm out of here. No, John Sitka. John Sitka is the chair for the Norfolk Republican Party, and he has been he's again mutual friend. I've had him on my program once and had a great conversation with him. And again, one thing I always tell folks, look, it's you have to have conversations with folks of all sides of the aisle. That's one thing I love being independent. I'm there in the left circles, I'm there in the right circles, I'm there in the middle. I'm having conversations with all sorts of folks, and I'm thrilled to have on John. And let's go ahead and bring him on, get his take on some stuff. John, how you doing, sir?
Great, Arrington. Conrad, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm pleased to actually meet you.
Yeah, it's good to meet y'all too. And you're right. Charlie Kirk said the same thing. He pretty much said if we stop talking to each other, that's when problems occur. That's when violence and things occur. That's
very true. And I mean, I remember seeing debates between There's a gentleman, Dr. Rashard Ritchie. I don't know if you familiar with that name, but he hosts a program on the Young Turks. Him and Charlie has done debates, public and as well as taped debates back and forth. Even though they disagree, they respect their form of debating. And I mean, hey, that's what is needed. You go back and forth, shake hands, call it Christmas, and go on to the next.
Right.
But yeah, John, we about to say, Conrad.
I had never heard the phrase "call it Christmas" before, so thank you for
Call
showing
it
me that phrase.
that's just you welcome. You welcome. But John, man, Conrad and I, we have spoken on how crucial these elections are. This Tuesday is the grand finale. It is election day here in the Commonwealth, here in the in the Hampton Roads area. We have some big elections happening on a state level. We have all 100 seats in the state house that are up for grabs. We have local races happening, as well as the gubernatorial race, lieutenant governor's race, and attorney general's race. So now I mentioned earlier, you are the chair for the Republican Party for the city of Norfolk. What have you heard from Republican voters in the city of Norfolk on what are some of the issues that they're looking at in this during these elections, during these races?
Well, I find it humorous when people talk about MAGA because, quite frankly, the Republican Party is not monolithic. First of all, we're not a bunch where we have our own divisions, and people vote independently and of their own mind right off the bat. And I find it humorous that Trump lives rent free in a lot of people's minds, and that our politicians are more interested in fighting him than worrying about the Commonwealth. And I think that's the part that I'm more interested. Even when I was running, I was more interested in the Commonwealth. I wasn't running it with or against Trump. And it was so interesting to see the opposition running against Trump. And I'm like, run against me. I'm part of the Commonwealth. So that's where I think a lot of people are right now. They're not wanting higher taxes. They're not wanting the redistricting because it's constitutional. This was decided by a bipartisan group. And that's why it's going to be challenged at the courts. And people forget the reality of that. Just like I heard what they were talking about Texas. No, Texas was doing it constitutional because the judge mandated that they did that. But they forgot the truth. Look at the details. So I'm always humored by when people tell things. It's like, okay, now tell the rest of the story. Tell the stuff that you're not telling people. But that's okay. I let people do their own homework. Let them do their own research. It's cool. And I looked at your Facebook post. I had a couple of questions because I admit ignorance myself. Like yesterday, I saw that Barack Obama was in town and I saw that you had attended, and I'm sure you had a good time. But wasn't it last year when Kamala Harris was running and he was chiding the black male voters and saying, why aren't you voting for the black woman? And now he's coming here to Virginia, Norfolk, and telling the black voter to vote for the white woman. And second of all, the National Association of Advancement for Colored People are telling their voters to vote for the white lady? Did I miss a groove on this record somewhere?
Yeah, I think you did, John. Only because they're looking at
party.
They're looking at their party. They're not looking at their party.
Like to me.
They're looking at their. Yeah, well, that's, you're entitled for your opinion. I think when they look at their track record, if you see one person that has done probably more in supporting minorities and black people and one doing the least, well, I guess someone will say, I'm going to encourage that elected official, or that person running for office.
Okay,
I haven't. Hold on, John. We have seen Winsome Earl Sears, I don't think, say anything in regards to supporting HBCUs. Hence why, she was booed literally almost out of the university at Norfolk State, because the person she supports and will continue to support has took away funding for historically black colleges and universities. Now, if she had an issue with that as a black woman, she would.
Okay, but how does she do that as a lieutenant governor? All she can do is break a vote. She can't make any votes except to break votes. Isn't that the job of
But
the
you know what?
lieutenant governor?
But guess what? Her being quiet is not helping either. Her saying
Mhm.
something, even though she can't probably at that position won't make the call. She's running for governor. So if someone brings that up and she avoids that question, that's still not supporting it.
But isn't it up to the assembly, the General Assembly, to make these decisions? It's not really the lieutenant governor's job, is it?
Well, but federal funding I don't think the General Assembly really has that power to what's happening on the federal level, though.
All
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
you just said it, federal level. So she has no control over that.
Well, I think it's interesting when folks all of a sudden now, because I actually had a teacher to say that, and I said this is how my post went, by the way, too, John. I said when I was in 7th grade was when Obama first got elected. I said he was elected because it's there on public information. He was elected as the first African American. I'm like, okay, that's really cool. As a kid, I'm like, okay, that's a big major deal that, you know, for my family, who are, I would say, conservative Democrats. So they voted for Republicans and they voted for Democrats. They were never solo to a party, but they were in support of this. So I just said, hey, look, this was this individual. It was an honor seeing him. I said, politics aside, he was still a very class act individual. And I've heard that from both sides of the aisle, say he was a class act individual. So I had a former teacher of mine that said, well, then in that case, I figure you're going to be supporting the first Black woman governor. And it was funny because it was a slight dig. And I just thought it was very interesting because this had nothing to do with party politics. When I mentioned in my statement, I didn't say anything about supporting a Democrat or supporting a Republican. Was I at a rally that was a Democratic vote, a Democratic candidate? Yes, I was. But let's be honest. I think most folks were there to see Barack Obama. Let's just be blatantly honest. Most folks were there to see Barack Obama. So I was there to see Barack. Yeah.
Well, no, I asked these questions because, you know, I ran for Ward 3 school board, House of Delegates 93rd, and of course the 3rd congressional district. Predominantly Black voters, if you really want the truth, more than 60%. And I actually knocked on thousands of doors in many Black communities. And I asked certain questions, and they're no different. They didn't have to be conservative or Republican. These were values that we all share: schools, workforce, taxes, money, their children. All of this was common things, no different. And those are the things I ran on. But when it came to push come to shove, and this is being frank, they wanted the Black voter. Now, y'all talked about the female. No, if there was a Black female voter, that was the first thing. But when you confront these delegates or Senate or any of these members, they couldn't answer the Constitution. They couldn't answer certain questions. When you looked at their voting record since they've been in, it's not been for the values of the people they represent, but that's who they wanted.
Well, you know what, John, too, and I hate to cut you off. I think that's important for when it comes to knowledge within the community, because I was raised in a household that we weren't voting for somebody because of color. We were voting off of values, and that should be the fact for everybody. I think in some communities, you don't have a great relationship between local government and the community, and a lot of folks, a lot of folks don't even know the clerk of court, the commissioner of revenue. Let's be frank, no one knows those positions because it's not always up for the residents to always put in the work. They're the ones public servants work for them. They should be coming to them 24/7 on the job that they're doing. So I can't always put the blame. Yeah, I can't always put the blame. And that's what we always agree on too, John, in regards to there's elected officials that will stay in office and you will not hear a peep out of them until it's election time. We can all, I think all three of us agree that there's elected officials that exist that we won't hear from them until it's election season because they want to stay in office. And that's unfortunate because at the end of the day, they're public service. They're here to work for the people. Now in regards to the notion of, well, they're just going to vote based on the color of their skin. That's unfortunate because that's lack of knowledge. And I'm not saying that's for the majority because, hey, I don't know all of Black voters who they vote on. We really don't. But at the end of the day, I will say this as a Black man, there are folks, just for the sake of their skin, we're all never good. We all don't agree on everything, nor does all black people might have the best interest for black people. And that's a fact, because that has, and you could probably say the same about, hey, there might be some white folks that don't have the best interest for white folks, because
yeah, of course.
you know, we see it in politics. Conrad, you've been kind of quiet, man. Look, I hate, John and I, we're having our great conversation. Look, you want to chime in on that?
We've had a relationship, so you know, we're gonna, you know, I've heard you when before I was going on, and you don't want someone just sitting back and being quiet. If you want to challenge people, challenge. And I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but I will challenge people regardless, because if you challenge, it gives people the opportunity to think, and that's what I want people to do. I don't care who you are. Think. Ask questions. One of the things I learned from college: be a critical thinker. Yes,
I do have a
100%
question. I
agree.
guess it might come a little bit to a topic that you may have wanted to hold a little back in the show regarding Virginia Beach and the districts. But I do recall, because you just mentioned that you ran for a ward for school board in Norfolk, if I recall your introductory statements enough. And I'm curious if you were against the idea of running an award, and would you have preferred it to have been at large?
You know, probably at large, obviously. Yeah. But by the same time, I'll run whatever it takes. If it's a ward, it's a ward. If it's a precinct, it's a precinct. Whatever the arrangement is, if the voters said we want it at large, that's fine. But the voters said they wanted wards. And that's what we're going to work with. We work with what the voters decide. You know, we work. Go ahead, Conrad.
I also mentioned that I live in Portsmouth, and everything is at large here in Portsmouth. The school board races, city council, mayor races. I travel to Virginia Beach up to 4 to 5 times a week, largely to be teaching chess. And I still see a lot of these signs up about either vote yes or vote no in their 10-1 system. The Republican Party of Virginia Beach has officially taken the position that they want to go to 7-3-1. And I wonder if there is anything in the Republican bona fides which says that they have to be either for or against districts. I don't think you have to be a Democrat and like it, and you have to be a Republican and dislike it.
No, there isn't. And I'll be honest with you, and I'm going to be truthful. I don't know much about the Virginia Beach politics, because being chairman, my focus has been so much on Norfolk. Mm-hmm. That being said, no, there's nothing in writing anywhere. And it's whatever the Virginia Beach party decided. It's not, we don't care one way or the other. That's being true. I don't know.
Yeah, I have my own suspicions as to why they took the positions that they did. But I never held the belief that they actually was pro-Republican to hold the belief the district is good or not. Could you tell me a little bit about some more of the Norfolk delegate races in there, and just to see if you have a good ear to the ground as to how those races are going?
Yeah, all of the races for delegate, with the exception of the 94th. That's Phil Hernandez and Andy Pittman. And Phil has not put a lot of energy. I mean, you know, but he's pretty much feeling he's the shoe-in. And I think Andy Pittman has been working hard on the field to talk to groups and people. I think we'll see how it goes. The 94th has been slowly moving to the red side. So we'll see what happens this election, how far further it's moved along. But every election, we've seen it become more and more red in its voting politics. We looked at the numbers, and it's becoming more. So that's the only one I will call competitive, is the 94th. Other than that, we have something wrong. So gentleman running in the 92nd, but he's just, I think, there to just have his name on the ballot. There are no other challengers in the 93rd or the 95th.
That previous district that you said that's really leaning red, I actually spoke with some folks that said the similar things you're saying, is like that one looks like that could be an upset loss for Phil. So I'm just curious, like, you know, why do you think it's, you know, been growing more red on that in that district?
Well, I think one of the things too, some of the voters there, and I'm just saying this is from conversations with people in general, is that they're beginning to feel a little more betrayed with the House, with the General Assembly, because it's been total Democrat. So they feel like a lot of the folks are beginning to feel like they're being ignored. And even though they may be a minority, they still feel like, yeah, but we still matter. We still exist. And if you're putting in things like right now, there's an amendment to have abortion up through the third term and after birth, and it's pretty broad and it scares people. It's one thing to have the current law up through the second term, but now we're making it a state amendment. Well, this has got a few people shaken. And so I think sometimes where we think people are monolithic, and I want to be honest with you, I don't think people should be a monolithic voting bloc. I'll give you an example. White people, we don't care if you vote Republican or Democrat. Same thing in the Latinos, same thing with the Asians, you vote. But I think what scares or makes people have the perception, I could be wrong, the perception is if you're black, you're going to vote Democrat. It's almost monolithic. Not that I think that's 100% true, but that's the perception. So when you talk about this, I mean, they should have the freedom to vote how their mind, their conscience. I would love to have that perception, and I would love to broadcast that. That's their perception. I would love to be wrong, Arrington. I really would be about a lot of things. Okay.
Wrong on what?
Well, if the black voter is not monolithic, that they'll vote for a white person as easy as they'll vote for a black person. They'll vote for a Republican as easily that they'll vote for a Democrat. Not just generally, because I don't want the Democrat Party to take the black voter for granted. The problem is if they can count on your vote 100% of the time, guess what they could do? Take you for granted. Because Republicans have done that too.
To add on to, and I'm agreeing with, I'm
taken for granted.
I will. I would say. Oh, what were you gonna say, Conrad?
No, what's the opposite of taken for granted? Because one would hope that if you wanted true competition, then both parties would have to be speaking to the values of that group equally.
Exactly.
To which case,
but
it's not necessarily true.
I'm agreeing with you, but I was at a civic league back a week ago, and there was a city official there who pretty much was pushing DEI, budget stuff, talking bad about Republicans and the president. And I'm like, dude, what does that got to do with Virginia? And I didn't know how to tell him the voters that I've knocked on the door. These were people who were just as Democrat as everybody. Were black. Do not want CRT and DEI. What they told me. They want their kids educated. They want to see their lives do better than their lives. Actually, at this civic league, this one gentleman says, I want to see workshop and stuff in high school, the things like technical training. That's what he told me because he knew that's where folks were going to get their money from.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the kids, if they had an opportunity. And what I mean by taken for granted, Conrad, is this. Mm-hmm. It's called accountability. Yeah, if I'm a Republican, trust me, had I been voted in, I would have been on my toes of accountability because think about it. They're going to hold me accountable. They're not going to, I can't take my voter for granted. I'm white, I'm male, I'm Christian. So right off the bat, that has several strikes against me. But by the same time, if there is a black representative, are you going to hold them accountable? Because go ahead.
I was gonna say you said like tech initiatives. Was he talking about like in schools or?
Well, this was one of the members of the civic league. This wasn't the city official. The gentleman was saying, look, I want to see like wood workshop, mechanical. And I think there's a certain degree of that because I think over by Lake Taylor and Norfolk, I think they're reconstructing that. And I think they were trying to say we need to have more of this in school. And I think up in Newport News and Hampton, I think they're working a lot of that because of the shipyard.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And we need to give kids, every time I turn around, it was like, why are we sending kids to college? Not every child is there for college. I guarantee you.
Very true.
John Sitka may have a doctorate in education, but tell you what, in high school, I was a DNF student. True story. College was not in the cards for me, so I joined the military.
And I think too now, just because again we're seeing government funding being cut in, like say departments of ed, I do think that partnering with say some of the local businesses that, like you mentioned, woodwork, I do see that as a solution. And again, that's the part where, you know, I always, and I think how John and I always get along, because I there's moments where I'm like, I hear you. Now to say you're wrong at sometimes. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have a number of things I might can say you're wrong on, but at the end of the day, John, I always appreciate your perspective, you challenging the notion, because that's what needs to be done, is challenging. Again, going back to issues happening, I agree. We all don't want to always hear local officials talking about what's happening in Washington. You want to hear what's happening locally. But at the end of the day, if there's a form of something or anything that might requires a funding aspect, they're going to say, well, we're going to get it from the state. Well, then if the state is getting that lack of funding, that's going, again, I've said this time and time again, what happens in Washington trickles down on the state and then eventually hits us too. So it's kind of hard to ignore.
More so.
Yeah, it's hard to, but I'm not saying make that the common thing. To your point, I'm not saying make that your front and center, always bashing Washington as a local, as a local official or local anything, because it's like, okay, there are some ways we can try and avoid. I get your point with that.
Well, how come we don't hold our officials in Congress accountable? We're attacking a lot of times our General Assembly, our governor or lieutenant governors, okay, and saying they're in cahoots. Well, that's fine. But the real problem isn't them. If you really get down to the nuts and bolts, how come we're not holding our representatives in the House of Representatives or the Senate? They're the ones that can make those changes and decisions about money and where it goes.
My question is, how do we measure that quick? Because if we are equally upset about Congress right now, we're probably going to be upset, A, for different reasons, and B, want it to be on a different timetable, perhaps. Perhaps some of us are willing to wait till next November to hold Congress accountable, and others might want to recall them if we could, but that's incredibly difficult to do.
Right.
So I meant accountability. How fast do you want it to happen? Because 2 years is sometimes very long.
Well, here's the other thing. Some of these folks have been in there forever, like since the 1990s or before. And so they now have this ability. They've got a lot of money for just being there for whatever period of time. So when they come up for re-election, they got tons of bucks. So someone who, let's say you or anybody else wants to run against them because you've got the better idea, it's going to be tough because they're incumbents and they've been in there for a long time. That doesn't mean they're the best. That's my question. How do you hold them accountable? They're there and they're representing us. And you talked about that money. You're right. When do we start holding these people accountable? We just had an election last year and Tim Kaine got reelected. So,
well, I think that's always the homework that, for at least for me, John, I always encourage with our listeners is we have to get people out, for one, because I'm assuming that civics league that you were at, how many people attended?
This is about 30 people.
So 30 people in a ward. I don't know if it was ward, super ward, but Ward 3. So more than 30 people live in that ward. So you know what I'm. It's just it's difficult, and it's always going to be the uphill challenge to get people to come out, and that's where my homework is always like stressful, because I'm like, y'all, like for example, and I know we got a jet because we have our next guest on, and I appreciate you, John, for taking the time out of your busy schedule coming on.
And I also want to hear from Conrad anytime.
Good. Well, not unless you have a really interesting new question. I was just going to read off some stats from the 2023 race in Phil Hernandez, because Pittman ran against him in that year too, if I have this correct. And Hernandez raised about $1.2 million, and Pittman then raised about 502. And Hernandez won 55.7 to 44.1. And I'm curious if you suspect that it might be closer to like 52-48 or tie or something like that.
Let's start with a tie because I'm a little more optimistic.
Mhm.
Because just because someone look, all that money that Phil got was not from Virginia. And I do know where some of it actually did come on because you can go to VPAP.
Yep,
and
I'm
you
on
can find
VPAP
out.
right now.
Okay, VPAP will tell you who his donors were. So
Yeah, I think, say for new reports right now, it says Hernandez has only raised 354,000 and Andy Pittman 17,000. I think the new reports might push it maybe closer to 100K for Andy and then 500K for Phil, which seems like he has fallen less than the 2023 haul in terms of money.
yeah, I'm interested to see what happens for us. It's important to know what the numbers are then. And the biggest thing we know, and I'm going to wrap this up because I know he's got a new guest coming on. But the point is I think a lot of times what's killing us here in Norfolk, and when I've knocked on doors, it's not the opposition that's upset me. What's really upset me when I was knocking on doors is my fellow Republicans. And when I knock on their door and they say, why bother? We're going to lose. I'm not even going to show up. I'm not going to do anything to discourage. It means no matter how much I vote, we're still going to lose. And I want to kick them in the tail, says, you know, some of these votes like this year, every time we have these off-year elections, they're low turnouts. And I want to say, had you showed up, we really would have won. And that's the issue we have. People are not showing up.
Well, John, look, again, I truly appreciate my friend from taking the time out your busy schedule to chop it up here. Again, this is crucial time, not crucial time, but this is the final stretch, right? We have November 4th is happening, and it is the final countdown. So again, I appreciate you taking the time out your schedule, and again, continue to stick that foot up folks' butt and tell them, hey, you got to get out there and vote. I mean, let's be honest, man. I'm always going to be an advocate for voting turnout, man. We got to keep that momentum going, regardless of the side you're on. Hey, look, voting is your power, voting is your voice, so you got to get out there and do what's best for your
Arrington,
community.
I hope we talk some more because talking is important. It's when we stop talking is what upsets me. We need to continue to talk, whether we agree with each other or not. Let us please continue to talk.
Well, look, I'm gonna treat you to lunch. That I'm saying it right here. I'm gonna treat you to lunch one day very soon because Norfolk has some great
Would
eateries.
it be in Norfolk or would it be in Chesapeake?
I'll go wherever you tell me to go.
You have a great one, John.
You take care, buddy.
Yep.
Pleased to meet you.
All right, family. Well, look, we have another special guest on the lineup here. We have Miss Jennifer Naparella. She is the Democratic candidate for commissioner of the revenue here in the great city of Chesapeake. I'm gonna be a little biased because I knew Jennifer for a minute. She ran for city council in the city of Chesapeake as an independent, and I'm going to continue to share this with folks because on a local level as well as on a state federal level, independent candidates, it's a struggle for them to win elections. Let's just be frank here. I mean, it's always a struggle for independent candidates to win election or even just to run, right?
Mm-hmm.
To stay for the full final stretch. She ran as an independent for city council, made it all the way, came up short, but her turnout, her voting numbers definitely shook a lot of it was a win for her, even though she did not succeed in winning a seat. So she has since then she has now been endorsed by the Chesapeake Democratic Party. She is a Democratic candidate for commissioner of the revenue. So let me go ahead and bring on Miss Jennifer Naparella. Jennifer, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you, Arrington? And hi, Conrad. Good to see
Hi.
you too.
Good to see you again.
Just for the record, John and I are not in the same house. I noticed our background was the exact same.
I was about to say, wow. If you could, Jennifer, could you bring down your camera just slightly? Oh, there we go. There we go. Perfect.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. No, and if you guys were in the same house, I'll be like, wow, how does those conversations go? Because I know Jennifer.
Finally bipartisan.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Jeez Louise, that's difficult.
3 minutes into listening, I was fired up.
Well, look, Jennifer, if you don't mind sharing with us the position of a commissioner for of the revenue, because I was speaking with John on and just sharing how look a lot of there's a lot of voters in residence, we're unaware, and I put myself in that, but we're unaware of the political positions that are in just on a local side, right? And Commissioner of Revenue is one of them. What exactly does that role? What is the job of that role?
So the Commissioner of the Revenue, I think the job description on paper lists Commissioner of the Revenue's position exists in order to identify all sources of revenue in the city. And it's specific, the language is specifically geared to make it sound as though all these sources of revenue are the taxpayers and their property. However, and yes, that absolutely is the job, is to find sources of revenue, identify it, tax it, make sure that it's on the level. However, my position is, especially at this time in our country's history, now is the time that we don't want to look at our taxpayers as additional sources of revenue. We need to find other sources of revenue to supplement the losses that we're facing at the city level, and to prepare to protect ourselves as much as we can from whatever's coming down the pike. So in short, Commissioner of the Revenue is the person that you hate because they send out the tax bill on your cars.
Yep.
In long, I imagine it as being a much more fruitful position for the taxpayers than what it currently exists as.
Karen, you want to mention anything?
Yeah, you ran last year, City
Mhm.
Council, Commissioner of the Revenue this year. Do you imagine, let's say you are sworn in this time in January, or is it late December that you would be sworn in?
Early January. I
Early
think,
January.
well, I might be sworn in late December, and then I would take office January 1st.
Do you think that this would change anything you might want to advocate for, or are you still able to advocate for similar things? It's just your role is going to be a little different in the government.
If I understand your question correctly, yes. I actually see this as extremely exciting. I feel like it's an unexplored office for potential change and for potential relief for the taxpayers, that really we haven't looked at the position in that way before, but that's our mistake, and I would like to rectify that.
Awesome. Jennifer, I want to ask you this, and I know you've probably been asked this before. You are a longtime educator.
Mhm.
Your career is in education. Now, Commissioner of Revenue, some folks will say, okay, finance is everything. If you're a banker, if you're an accountant, okay, it makes sense. But I know you have doubters saying, well, I don't think she's quite qualified for this position of Commissioner for Revenue. What is your response to doubters and the folks that question your qualifications or experience to even run for this position?
First and foremost, I don't see the position as it involves finances, but it hinges on creative thinking and problem solving. So yes, it involves finances of the city and the taxpayers, but I see the position as being one that leads an office of numbers oriented people, which my background is education, and I'm certified in English, social studies, economics, AP economics. I have an understanding, and I have worked with big budgets before. And I have no concern about my ability to do that. My real claim or stake in this position isn't necessarily the actual finance part of it as it exists now. I would like to expand what the office does now and provide services back to people that would cost the city nothing and would allow the people to become more educated, more financially aware of their own financial situations and preparing for retirement and so forth. I just see the office. I have no concern, Arrington, to answer your question about my ability to do this job. I think the job actually has been underserved in years past.
Where do you see savings that could be activated on the quickest if you had your druthers?
rather than looking at savings, what I would like to do is look at new sources of revenue for the city. For example, Chesapeake doesn't have a medical marijuana dispensary, but every other major city around us does. Chesapeake issues medical marijuana cards, and we have thousands and thousands of patients in Chesapeake who go to Portsmouth and Norfolk and Virginia Beach to fill their prescriptions. Now that we have this new VA clinic up on Battlefield off of Nels Ridge Road, I see that as a perfect opportunity to explore a dispensary ourselves, and that would be a source of revenue that we could tap into that is brand new for the city, and hopefully use that as a buffer to protect ourselves from having to increase taxes on the taxpayers.
Well,
So, yes, I want to save, but I also want to find new sources of revenue, which I think are available, and we just haven't explored them yet.
I would definitely agree with you on that, Jennifer. Spoiler, I am a lifelong Chesapeake resident, born and raised, and I have witnessed, I know Chesapeake has the funds, but we continue to put our funds in stuff that, to me, that's a bit outdated and so common. And I'm like, why aren't we pursuing this? Why aren't we pursuing that? Again, comparing to what Jennifer said, hey, look, every single city has a marijuana dispensary. Now, look, I'm no marijuana fiend. I'm at the end of the day, I'm like this. If it works for other cities, why can't it work for us as well? Right. We have had a person, the current person serving this office has been in office for quite some years. She was and served as a chairwoman of the school board, someone that folks can say, well, kind of a career politician within the city of Chesapeake. And again, I think that's I want to ask you this question, and before we close, why should folks vote for Jennifer Naparella come November 4th? For the folks in the city of Chesapeake, why should they vote for Jennifer Naparella instead of someone who has been familiar with this position for quite some years?
I would say exactly for that reason. I'm a working class person who understands what it's like to live as a working class person. I haven't been groomed or cultivated or, experienced in this political environment that I think allows people who are not necessarily strong or capable to be protected. So yes, this person has had this job. This is her third year. And how many times in those 3 years has the office been negatively looked at? And during the incumbent's time on the school board, she was collecting unemployment pay from the state and not documenting that on her own personal taxes. So, somebody being a career politician in this day and age, I would say that's exactly who that person is. And that's exactly why that person should be replaced, because we need to protect ourselves and our working class. And that's my strength. And that is what I want to do. Whereas I would argue that the incumbent isn't willing to, or maybe isn't able to put in that kind of effort and to solve problems with the skill that I can.
Conrad, any final words before we close with Miss Naparella?
I'm curious, because you've been able to run twice. What has been, I guess, the most rewarding part of running this time?
Well, it's 2 days before the election. So I'm going to struggle to find something to say that's rewarding. Maybe in like 72 hours, I'll find something more quickly than now. I guess what's been rewarding, honestly, is the same thing that I loved last time, is getting out and talking to people and understanding where they are and thinking about our lives as a whole. I imagine Chesapeake as a giant family. So even if you might not like weird Uncle Joe, or if you might not care for the way so-and-so thinks, we still take care of each other. That's what we have to do in Chesapeake. And the more I get out and talk to people, the more I see other people who feel the same way I do and think the same way I do. And I get to go back and kind of recharge and think about how I can take what I've learned and heard and how I can apply that to help everybody in ways that maybe we haven't been doing yet. So really, it's just getting out and talking to people again. I really like that part.
Communication is everything. Communication is everything. Well, Jennifer, look, you have a great one. Get your rest, because I know you're exhausted as hell, and because we all are. But it's you know, and I'm saying this because, again, you know, I've witnessed it firsthand of the effort Jennifer's been putting around here in the city of Chesapeake. So look, it is the final stretch. Best of luck to you on your race. Well, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again for coming here and taking out your busy schedule.
Thanks so much. Take good care. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
My friends, look, we have a little window room again to talk some more about what's happening on the state level here in Virginia. And Conrad, it's funny because I keep on thinking about the question that John, well, I don't even say if it was a question, but it was just interesting that he brought that up, because as I shared with him, I had an old teacher, high school teacher of mine, who was one of my favorites. She's sweet lady. And in regards to so I guess that means you're gonna vote for a black woman for governor. And I just it's so funny how that is just, like I said, it's a dig. That was no like oh goody two, like that was it, and it was so funny because, again, I repeat the message that I posted. I never mentioned about voting for anybody. I said it was an honor to witness a former president where politics aside, he was a class executive. And it's funny because there's a past conversation between Joe Rogan, podcaster Joe Rogan, comedian, UFC announcer, UFC commentator, Joe Rogan, and NFL quarterback Aaron Rodgers, actually saying the same thing. Like, yeah, he was one of the best presidents, in my lifetime, for sure. One of the most class A. Now, this is a guy that endorsed Trump, by the way, y'all. I just want to let you know. So, again, I spoke about his class, and all of a sudden somebody a white individual made the assumption that, so I guess you're gonna vote for the black, and that's the issue. And I didn't want to kind of
identity politics as more of a weapon.
Exactly. And so the reason why I responded like that with John is because, hey, it's a Republican talking point that a lot of Republicans continue to repeat from time and time again. And the issue is, yes, do I think that it's wrong for people to just vote based on skin? Yes. I don't think that helps you in the long run, because that doesn't build up knowledge as a voter. But at the end of the day, if you look at the track record between two individuals, you're gonna vote on who's doing better for the community than than the person that might be doing bad for the community. So that's why you might see not a lot of black folks support the black candidate running for governor. So I just wanted to kind of say that to our viewers that are tuning into that, just because I wanted to just mention that.
Yeah, and I'm curious in so much as he might, I don't want to use the word glib, but perhaps glibly look at the black voting bloc as a monolith. He used the word a couple of times because it votes sometimes near 90+ % Democrat. And I wonder if the absolute inverse is true as to how much African-American representation is even in the Republican Party. Is it 8% total of the total United States Republican Party apparatus?
That's very true.
And it is, a mirror image is not probably exactly true, but it's probably somewhat earned in the sense that, look, over the course of American history in Democrat and Republican politics, there has been a shift among the voting blocs themselves, but that is due to policy shifts. That isn't necessarily because they decided to stop liking the term Republican. There isn't inherently anything wrong with being a Republican. It's the policies there and the people being supported. Very true.
Very true. We were talking about the gubernatorial race, the governor's race. Lieutenant governor's race. We got to talk about this attorney general race. So that really made a lot of headlines because you have former state delegate Jay Jones, Democratic nominee for Attorney General, running against incumbent Republican nominee Jason Myers. Now, I just want to kind of backtrack on why it became such a controversial and a drama within this race, because a text message had resurfaced in 2022 where the then Jay Jones, who was out of office at the time, he was not currently in office, but he was a former delegate at the time, and he sent some very disturbing text messages to a colleague on the opposing side of the aisle about a then House Speaker who was from the opposing side, and it made headlines. And I'm not going to repeat it, but you know, because we talked about it from time to time again. Y'all can do your own research yourself, but it was a text message that, for me, I had to literally spend 2 episodes worth of me criticizing Jay, because how can you be, you know, whether if you're in politics or just in the public eye, or just in general, not even in the public eye, that message, it's not okay. It's not okay at all. And, you know, you thought it was cool to send it in a text. So now that's, you know, that's there saved up. That's never going to go away. And then on top of that, it comes out to light during a period of the right accusing the left of political violence after the assassination of conservative talker or conservative activist Charlie Kirk. And it's like, dude, you just shot yourself in the foot. Like, you literally just you possibly could screw yourself out of this.
Based on the polls, it's looking like Miyares has a very solid chance of.
I mean, dude, the Democratic Party had a lead throughout the whole beginning of the political cycle. Now you're seeing, like, you know, like you mentioned, you're seeing a huge jump. I mean, this was, and of course the right is like, oh, thank God, I needed a lifeline, and that is the
how they viewed it. Yeah, I don't think they were that upset. They wanted to act that upset because it gave them the ability to seize a little bit of the momentum back.
And look, I mentioned how the Republican Party wasn't seeing eye to eye in regards to their lieutenant governor candidate, which, you know, you can say is somewhat still kind of back and forth, but it's on the hush hush. It's not as public as it previously was. But now it's like, whoa, what is the Democrat doing? Because you have the Democratic side. There's been some folks that have taken back their support, but there's a lot of folks that have staying strong and staying in support of Jay Jones. I had the opportunity of talking with the chairman for the Democratic Party in Virginia Beach, which Virginia Beach is a very large city here in the Commonwealth. Is the largest, matter of fact, population wise, almost close to like 500,000 people that lives in that area. And, you know, they spoke on their support of Jay. But I think the one thing that I have an issue with, or I get annoyed by hearing it, is folks that are supporting Jay will say this: well, it's no different from what such and such is doing in office. Look at this side. Look at what's happening. You know, and I'm like, look, I get that, but 2 wrongs don't make a right. The what ifisms does get kind of old. Now, is it a smart strategy to continue to say, hey, look, the other side is no better? Could be, but I just think that still is not saying, look, we're trying to, again, rebuild the Democratic Party. We need folks that are going to be making smart decisions, the right decisions, and not, you know.
By the way, forgive me if I have an outlandish outburst because I'm watching the Raiders in overtime right now. And but nonetheless, hearing, and I almost would admit to some of that guiltiness of being the whataboutism. And because I have for years been against whataboutism, because I see it a lot also from the Republican side. This is the time you really get to see it on my side as the leftist side. And I think I still would vote for Jay Jones. I already had before the thing coming out. So I voted on the very first day of early voting. So it's not like I could take it back anyway. But if I'm trying to be as relatively objective, because I can't be purely objective, he sent that in 2022. So he's a delegate at the time. He's speaking with another delegate who is a Republican. So that's the first question I have is, were they actually good friends? Is that what that was? Is there? Why would he send that type of reaction? Because I know Democrats are going to be speaking negatively about Todd Gilbert as a concept, but why did he go that harshly?
Yeah.
As opposed to, man, Gilbert's a jerk. That would have been so much more easy to digest now. You couldn't use that as an October surprise. If you're saying like you want his kids dead or something like that, then that is literally beyond the pale. That's why we have measurements, because we need something like that to see how well we still connect with humanity when it comes to politics. But in the sense that this is where the Democrat turn for whataboutism is. That was in 2022. When was the Billy Bush recording of Trump on the bus? And that was years prior to that election cycle, but it was released in October 2016, and he still got enough votes to become president of the United States, which goes to show you it isn't so much about trying to one up the other side as, hey, they're that bad, so you must not vote for them. People are going to become that tribal, and Democrats like myself can be just as tribal into wanting to rally behind the party that, hey, if Trump gets elected twice out of 3 times, and that wasn't the only controversy he had. This, besides the being clocked for speeding 116 miles per hour in outside of New Kent County, if I recall, and seemingly getting away with the punishment on that, which is another thing that would have been an October surprise against Jay Jones. It doesn't seem to negatively impact him that much because we've seen so many other people get away from with it. For instance, you pointed out Glenn Youngkin was trying to get John Reed out of the race very early on this year, probably because of the story that came out with him just in the past few weeks about his online personality from the early 2010s. And that hasn't created his support among Republicans. I don't know how much we're going to get massive fallouts from controversies much anymore, because I think we flipped into that where that.
Oh, no, I mean, you're absolutely right, because I was actually, being in my centrist bubble, I was just, I was frustrated, really kind of calling hypocrisy on both sides, because again, it's the back and forth. It's the, okay, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Scott Jennings is a conservative political commentator from CNN. He's probably CNN's top conservative commentator on that channel, and he made a great and valid point. Is one of the you never see me agree too much with Scott, but he said like this: you have a man running for Senate out in Maine who recently just covered up a not with like a
my visual reaction is to the Raiders losing, by the way. They just lost.
He recently just covered a Nazi symbol tattoo on his chest. And in addition to that, and this is from what Scott said, he said you have him still getting support from the left. You have Bernie Sanders still, is not taking his endorsement back at all. And then you have Jay, who, after that debate between him and Jason Mayer, he raised about 500 or raised even additional $500,000
like a day or two after the debate.
So again, it's like, yeah, Scott does kind of have a point. Like, it's okay if this was the other way around. Same for Graham out of Maine, and I'm not going to speak too much on that, because I see we have another guest waiting backstage to come on. But if it was the other way around, the left would chew him to pieces. Now it's like, well, we're trying to no. Here is where, if you're trying so hard to bring the country together, these are perfect examples of, it's like, hey, look, in order for us to build up together, but then I play a little devil's advocate. I get it if I'm a Democratic elected official, because we're like, hey, look, if the other party doesn't play by the rules, why should we? And we're going to continue to go back and forth. So I get it. I guess sometimes it just gets a bit frustrating, because hey, I'm always gonna call, say 50-50 or like, okay, what if this, what if that? But we'll come back eventually to the races. We do have on another guest. We have Miss Haley Dollar. She is an Army combat veteran. She's also a former candidate. She previously ran for Virginia's 70th district, and she's also an advocate not only for veterans but also the LGBTQ plus community, as well as mental health. And so very thrilled to have her on. Let me go ahead and let's see. Haley, how are you doing?
Hey, good evening. How are you guys? I was just
Doing good.
getting invested in your conversation there. I find it, almost ironic that, I get brought into the conversation following talks of hypocrisy, because when it comes to both sides of the spectrum, when it comes to politics, and my experience in the last, and it's still going, I haven't left politics yet, but in the last few months, it was very eye-opening as to the hypocrisies on both sides, and just how in the best interest of the people, it would be to find a way to communicate more effectively, so that way we can come to more consensus about these bills that we're trying to pass, these improvements that we're trying to make. Because right now, as it sits, it's not just myself. I have neighbors, family members, friends, coworkers, clientele that come into the establishment that I support right now. They're sick of, just the political bashing. They're sick of lies being made up on both sides, things being fabricated, embellished, cherry picking through police reports. Constituents aren't dumb. They want the truth. They want to know that, yes, is this person going to best not just represent me to the public, but in private as well. And I also think that if more politicians were more transparent about their lifestyles, about who it is that they actually are, we could save a lot of time, and in lawsuits and investigations, taxpayer money, that could be allocated for a number of things. I mean, I've seen so many acts of pettiness in the last few months, not just from staffers and then these, elected officials and people trying to be elected, but even in just local constituents just gearing up, because people like to just buckle down on their parties. And at the end of the day, our generation and a few behind me, because I'm only 36 years old, we're sick of the back and forth. We want to see results. We want to invest in people that really have our best interests in mind. And it's very hard to sort through right now. We've seen it in multiple past elections where we're like, which evil do we choose? Which one are we, which way are we going?
Amen to that, sister. Amen to that. I mean, you said it. I mean, I think we're all here, in our 30s, and we are the ones that we're trying to, I guess, build a bridge or have an avenue for us. But once again, I go back to, the establishment continues to push us aside. And I'm not saying, I'm sure as hell not running for office. I'd rather talk junk because it's a lot more easier in front of her, to do that. But God bless you for you continue to stay in politics, though. God bless you. But I think you have a lot of the establishment looking intimidated to younger people getting more involved, because we are, at the end of the day, we're speaking truth to power. We're not going. I'm not saying all, but you have individuals that focus more on themselves and not the people. At the end of the day, the people is what voted them in office in the first place. And it's unfortunate that you have a lot of folks that will choose to they got me in office, good, now I'm in this position, I'm gonna ignore what they say. The promises that I said during that, don't worry about it, because they're not gonna focus, they're not gonna pay attention, because the lack of communication between government and the community, I mean, it's very distant. Like, a lot of folks are still asking questions, things in that nature. Haley, what's your? I want to get your. I'm sorry, Conrad. You want to add on to anything? You want to add on to some stuff?
Oh no, I mean, everything you're saying is accurate, and I, in my experience in running, it brought me joy to speak to constituents. That's why I don't really understand why a lot of these politicians and staffers can be so abrasive towards just the general community. But I've seen it firsthand. And I truly believe that there are just a handful of people that do get into politics. And if you break it down by just the basic salary, like, let's think about it. How many people can afford to run in politics if they're just a person like you or I? You know,
I
how
couldn't
many
do it
people
right
in
now.
the, what's that?
I couldn't do it right now, and I've run before.
Exactly, especially in this economy, without having the community support. If you don't have party support, it is nearly impossible unless you have already built a significant social media following, unless you've already amassed people within your local community that believe in you. Because at the end of the day, if you look at, you know, the fundraising between, you know, the Democrats who are, you know, kicking the crap out of the Republicans right now as far as fundraising goes for these campaigns, you know, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be about who spends the most money or who can allocate it in the best way, but it should be about who is the true best potential candidate, who is going to do the most good. And, you know, we can look at a number of issues within the system, term limits being one of them. I mean, how effectively can people make laws if they're campaigning for a year out of the 2 years that they hold a seat? You know, realistically, how much time can you actually focus on having boots on the ground in your community and actually meeting with charitable organizations and meeting with the people that you're supposed to be directly influencing or have the power to provide that type of influence?
No, very true, very true. Conrad, you want to add on to anything?
Yeah, I got a couple questions because you are on the peninsula, Miss Haley. You run in 70, which is a very competitive race by the looks of it now. And I begrudge me a second here as I look at my tabs for VPAP. And 70 is listed as Lean's Democrat. Shelley Simons has been there a minute. And she has, according to the most recent numbers I got here, $218,000 that she's raised. And Cynthia, if I'm pronouncing her last name, Scoderico right, was only $17,122 that she's raised. And John Bloom is a libertarian who's in the race who hasn't listed any money that he has raised, but nonetheless, he is in that race. It's a 3-person race. Have you seen it gone as you would have expected it to go, or how much different would it have been with your race if you had won the primary?
So I can tell you right now that when I start, and I'm going to call this an adventure because it is what it is. I had very little foresight, oversight. I was a complete novice walking into this. I had a lot of assistance from friends and professionals in the field that, you know, mentored me and put me in good directions. Few that put me in some really bad directions too. I've met some of the best people working in politics. I've met some of the absolute worst. Many that you know, Conrad. Many that you probably know too, Arrington. And it blows my mind because I think it could have gone a lot better had I fundraised harder. But at the end of the day, I'm just one person. I'm a single mom of 4. You know, I'm going to college right now. I'm working full time. I had to take a significant pay cut in the last year. So the fact that I was able to turn out the numbers, even though many people might perceive them as being low, I was around 300. I think it was like mid 300s of people that came out for my, you know, for the primary, which I want to strongly believe that it was almost every person I had to collect a signature from. I had so many issues from the party and just trying to get my signatures verified so I could even find myself on that primary ballot. You know, you're only supposed to get, what is it, 120, 150 signatures?
Yep.
Yeah, I had to turn out at least, it was a little over 300. So I want to believe that in every single person that I spoke with, because it was me, and it was interesting because when I met with the party, they were so surprised. They were like, well, you signed the bottom of all these affidavits. And I was like, yes. And they were like, so you collected all these signatures? Yes. I went with my kids in tow and a stroller every weekend I had a chance and most nights after work. But I got out into the community and I met with people. I did various podcasts. I had an experience on the John Frederick show. I'll call it that. You know, didn't really get much of an opportunity to speak. You know, the majority of it was him going off about my thoughts on different candidates, which being only a few months into a primary, I don't know why my thoughts would matter, because it's not like any of us could really get to know any of these people in that short frame, you know, that short time frame. But I'm actually going to be voting on voting day. And I'm still finding myself wondering, you know, am I making the right choice for my community? Am I making the correct choice? Because what it boils down to is we know what the incumbents are made of. We can see what results that they have or have not had during their terms. We can also take a look at these candidates and what they've potentially produced, you know. all we can really see is what they allow us to see. And if you don't think the majority of them have tried to scrub any footprint of a real life off of the internet, then, you know, you're very misinformed. But, you know, and it was interesting because this is the first year that I'm going to vote in an election. I'd never voted before because I had never felt impassioned enough about a candidate to step forward and do such. I never had much faith in any of them. And a lot of that had nothing to do with just party alliance or values or anything like that, or what promises were being pushed. It was more so of the perception that these people painted and the fact that I really couldn't put my trust and, you know, my full support behind it, because I saw terrible things happen under Republican administrations. I've seen terrible things and lies happen under Democratic institutions. You know, there was never any one side that I could just choose, because it always boiled down to, okay, which lesser evil am I going to choose, and which result is going to be less traumatic to the communities that I support? And that's what a lot of people are fearful these days. They're fearful of their families being torn apart. They're fearful of food security, housing security. I mean, even being able to work and provide a life for their children that they can barely afford daycare for right now. There's so many issues, not just in the 70th, not just in any of the districts in Virginia. We're seeing this as a whole, and we've got to step up as the people and put pressure on these legislators, because, you know, with all due respect, if you're only paying these people $18,500 a year, not counting the per diem and special benefits they get during session, I mean, that's less than what people make working, you know, minimum wage. So do you really expect these people to be invested and care about your best interests? And then you also have to take into consideration into their backgrounds, you know, their general demographics, what they've experienced, what their values are. I mean, even down to, like, you know, what church they go to and what the structure of that looks like and how it may drive their decisions. That's how we should be choosing, is, you know, what can this person do for me, and will any of their internal biases affect that? And I think that is what's so terrifying about looking at the Republican structures and what's so unique right now, because who knew it, the Republicans in Virginia would have the most diverse tickets. But then when you break it down to what they do and do not support, or what we don't know, because no one will talk about it because they're trying to stay off of certain subjects, how do we as voters, how do we as constituents step forward and say, yeah, they have my vote 100%. I know they have my best interest in mind. You can't.
Very true. Well, look, Haley, I feel like I can definitely talk with you for hours, because hearing you speak, I'm like, spot on. The one thing I do want to say that was funny when Conrad has said there's a libertarian candidate. We got libertarian candidates out here in Virginia. That's
I've met
had to make a
John
little
Bloom.
joke about that, because
he's an
Okay.
interesting
Shout out
guy.
to Nicholas
Which, I mean, hey,
Olenek.
look.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I met with the Libertarian Party a few months back. Great people, lots of knowledge, very impassioned. And that's what I love about it. You know, we've really seen a movement with the Libertarian Party where I feel like they've noticed that their numbers and membership have kind of dwindled. So they've all started kind of moving in different directions of local candidates to support, because if they really want to see someone that they believe in win, they've kind of unified. And the majority of them have joined, the Virginia Liberty. It's the, I'm gonna have to look up it. It's like the Virginia Liberty Caucus or something like that. It's a new caucus that they formed, that they are, you know, joining forces to try to provide more support for local candidates. So I think it's great. You know, I've never, anytime I've been met with libertarians, one of which from out in the Virginia Beach area, Nicholas Olenek. Gosh, if you've never had him on the show, Arrington, you should.
Yes.
You know,
Oh, multiple times. No, Nick's my guy. And again, I mean, I love seeing other options, right? I mean, I'm all about like having multiple candidates, not just the two party. I'm not really crazy about the two party system. So I'm all about having, you know, hey, other avenues. But Nick is an awesome dude, good guy. Like, you know, again, we might not agree on everything, but Nick is a really good dude. He's a good dude. I've always had the
Nick does not
thrill of
hold
talk
back.
with him.
no, and see,
Oh,
that's why
hell no, absolutely not. I did see, but look, you know what, Haley, look, again, we appreciate you coming on, taking the time out of your Sunday to chop it up with us, and we will definitely be talking soon. We'd love to have you back on. I know when we do special, I know Conrad has his platform, SchezzWho. I have my program. Would definitely love to stay in touch and maybe get your take posts election day, if that's cool.
You would love it, Arrington, because let me tell you, I have a lot to say. I didn't really get into too much about the expectations of the 70th, but Conrad, you described it as a close race. I don't really think it's going to be much of one.
What do you think of 86, if you had a minute to mention HD 86?
So 86, remind me, is
Cordoza and Thornton.
I figured that was it, and Virgil Thornton. So I think that's going to be a very interesting race. And as you know, I've supported AC in the past, and I would consider him a friend. I like the guy. He's pretty straight.
I would say the same thing. And again, I'm we don't see. I'm a centrist. There's moments I lean more left. There's moments I'm like, okay, I can get with when this person on the right is saying, but the majority, right, just in the current climate, I mean, the right just hasn't really been gravitating to my issues. But AC, he's a cool guy. I mean, he's supported Democratic candidates as well. That I've seen, which I like seeing the bipartisan. I'm like, okay, that's what I love to see, is the fact that we live in a melting pot when it comes to viewpoints and stuff, and we got to learn how to work together and not really do it just based on the party per se.
Exactly, but I think that race will be interesting. But I've got to root for my boy. We've done a lot of work together, and we've done a lot of talking about future legislation to protect women and children, human trafficking survivors, and also ways to better improve the current Amber Alert and Cody Alert system. So, I think AC is a great guy. He's very knowledgeable, very passionate. And like you said, we may never agree on absolutely everything, but you can at least hold an intelligent and stimulating conversation, without fear of just being like shut off or attacked. But what I don't like about the Virgil Thornton side of things is that when I first saw the campaign ads that were talking about the alleged criminal activities of AC, I was like, that's interesting, because one of my many roles is I work as a paralegal, as well as I'm at William & Mary Law School right now. So I always find it interesting, because I've had to deal with a lot of slander and defamation in my past, working as an entertainer, all over the country and internationally. So it's an interesting dynamic to watch. But I went immediately to their website, looked at the QR code, and as soon as I started reading through, the information listed online, I was like, they're cherry picking. I bet they went through police reports and just picked out anything that could look good, because then it's not technically slander and defamation because someone filed it. But the problem is anyone can file a police report. I've had it happen. I've been swatted. I've had all kinds of crazy stuff happen, based off of my previous employment, alongside of with politics and people wanting to drive by my house and act crazy. So if Thornton had come from a more genuine place, one where I feel like most candidates, they should put their best foot forward first so we can get to know them, where it's like, he worked at the shipyard, he's about apprenticeships, he was a church deacon, all of the good things that he can do. Well, for me, looking at a candidate, it was tarnished when I went through what they were trying to sling as far as mud, because it was like, I could look at the strategy, I could look at the tactic, and I was like, really, that's what we're going to do? We can't just be a better candidate. We have to go cherry pick through police reports. It just seems.
Yeah, it does.
And they all do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks. Haley, again, I thank you again for coming on. We have another guest waiting in, but again, thank you for your time, and we'll talk soon.
Yep, thanks.
All right, boss. Look, we have our final guest on, and we actually might go a little over the 2-hour mark, because I definitely want to give much time for our final guest. Another buddy of mine, former councilman, Virginia Beach councilman, Mr. Chris Taylor, also former mayoral candidate for the city of Virginia Beach, business owner. I'm glad that he's taking the time out of his busy schedule to, I want to get his take on the issues happening in his city, in the city of Virginia Beach. First thing that I could think of is the whole voting debate between the current system, the 10-1 voting system, and the modified that they're discussing is the 7-3-1. So Conrad, I've had both current elected officials on. I had Councilwoman Jennifer Rouse, who's for the 10-1. I've had Councilman Cash Jackson Green, who is for the 7-3-1. So I had the opportunity to speak with both, getting their perspective on why, hey, folks should vote for this one, why the folks should vote for this one. So I'm excited to have on Chris Taylor, which, in the public, man, we haven't heard from any. It was hard getting in touch with him. I'm like, wait, is he gonna come? I don't know. And we got him. Oh, we got him. That's right. We got
be one of the few individuals who, if he was in a picture with Glenn Youngkin, would not be dwarfed.
Good evening, guys.
That's right.
Good
Chris,
evening.
how you doing, sir?
I'm great. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Hear you loud and clear, boss.
All right. Well, I'm honored to be here tonight on the show, and appreciate the invitation. And you are absolutely correct. I've taken some time to spend with my family. I'm not in the political spotlight anymore, and it's on the way home from the skate park today with my 8-year-old and my 6-year-old. They were talking about all the signs on the road, and my 6-year-old said, "Daddy, you don't have any signs out." I said, "I'm not running this time." My 8-year-old goes, "And I'm so happy you take us to the skate park every day."
I was about to say, man, I've seen social media, you just enjoying life, and I take it's been just more of a breather now, not being, not in the mix, because look, politics never gets, calmer. It gets more and more and more aggressive, and it is doing that, really in Virginia Beach. The voting debate is what's been like one of the top tier issues happening in the Hampton Roads area, and really even happened on a state level, because I've spoken with some state delegates, and I asked them, I'm like, hey, look, any conversations, any talks about the the issue happening in my city, being a Chesapeake resident, I'm like, hey, any talks about how we can get a somewhat of a ward or district system in Chesapeake? And they said, we're gonna get to that, but first we got to get to Virginia Beach. So obviously Virginia Beach is really on there, and I felt some type of way. I'm like, oh, hey, excuse me, we're gonna have this conversation again, but I get it though. If you don't mind sharing, your take on this debate happening, especially being in office as an elected councilman. What's been your take, Chris, on this whole back and forth, the 10-1, and which is, just to kind of explain it to our viewers right now, the 10-1, and correct me if I'm wrong too, Conrad. 10-1, you have 11 in council in total, including the mayor. Now the mayor is the only at-large position in the full council. You have 10 individual council members that represents a specific district within their, within the city of Virginia Beach. Now the 7-3-1, what you have, seven members representing a district, and 3 at large in council, and then also the mayor's seat is also at large. So you have 4 in total that has at large. Am I correct with that? 4 mayors.
4 at-large members.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the main thing, Arrington, is people, they don't know. And so I've had at least 3 to 5 people reaching out every other day for the past 4 or 5 months saying, what's your opinion? How should I vote? And instead of telling them my opinion, which really doesn't matter, I give them information so they can go look at the history, being that my family's from here. My mother's side Native American, my father born in SeaTac. My great grandmother worked at the Francis Land House as the first colored Black person, because in 1924 the Racial Integrity Act made all Native Americans Black people. And so I've had the privilege of having family members that lived to be 105 to 112 that experienced 1963, when there was the consolidation of Princess Anne County and the city of Virginia Beach, which people think was founded in 1965. No, there was a Virginia Beach in 1903, and then it became a county, and then it became a city, and then it merged with Princess Anne County. And so a lot of people don't have all the history. And so the outdated 7-3-1 that was ruled illegal when Delegate Fowler passed the House bill that kind of got rid of the Conrad, you can help me here, but it got rid of the at-large voting, where you could live in Lynn Haven, Kings Grant, but you could receive votes from let's say Red Mill or Pungo. And so what would happen in many cases where you could have the district, that local neighborhood, really support the candidate, and they would get the most vote, garner the most votes in that district. But because of politics, because of coalitions, because of partisanship, there could be joint door knocking or favors, or anybody running in Pongo could go, okay, every door I knock, I'm going to tell them to also vote for Johnny instead of Billy in District 8. And so a perfect example is the election of Brad Martin, where he ran against the former mayor, vice mayor, city councilman, Honorable Lewis Jones, rest in peace. Brad won that district. The voters in that district, he received the most votes. Yet the Honorable Lewis Jones, because he had coalitions, because he had been in local politics for over 30 years, he was able to get more votes from across the city. And as a result, he won that race. So it's not always about race in terms of black or white, but we're talking about fair representation. Do you want your local neighborhood voice to be overshadowed or overpowered by special interest or just more political power? And that's what it comes down to. And so my position is, I sat at council for 2 years. I heard the same presentations from the city attorney that everyone else heard. And we voted as a body unanimously to support a legislative agenda item to change our charter to a 10-1. I had the privilege of running alongside Republicans as a moderate, but I also had the privilege of growing up with a father and a mother that were Democrats. So I wasn't this hard MAGA. And so being in the room, being in these conversations, I got to see the politics of it play out. And it was behind the scenes. It was rogue agents that went up to Richmond and spread a message that the new council that had been seated in 2023 wasn't necessarily supportive of the charter change. And that's when the bill was killed in the subcommittee. And then I guess subsequently it passed the General Assembly, but then the governor vetoed it twice. And so for me, this is not about necessarily the actual system. It's about, we did the right thing as a city council. We listened to the people. We paid UVA's Weldon Cooper Center $350,000, which I voted against because I didn't think it was a good use of taxpayer money, because I knew that if the outcome wasn't what it was going to be, the majority was going to continue to push the narrative that we see today. And so, this is about people's voice and their vote mattering. And if a federal judge has already spoken and communicated to our city attorney that the 731 system as it was illegal and violated the Voters' Rights Act, as an elected official that we're called the honorables, wouldn't we want to honor our word to the court and do what we said we were going to do?
And now we have Glenn Youngkin overtly taking a 10-1 position, which it wasn't just a veto like it was back in the day. Now he's making little commercials that you see on Senator Bill DeSteff's page that he likes being against the 10-1 system. So we can see the politics.
Well, and it's funny because, and I've spoken with, residents of Virginia Beach, conservatives and liberals, just to kind of have a perspective. And not to my surprise, most of them on both sides are for the 10-1. And I can speak, just from being a resident here in Chesapeake, like we are still at large. Out of the 7 cities, there's only really 3 cities that is still all at large. I believe, I want to say Hampton is one, Chesapeake is one, and
Hashtag
then
Portsmouth.
You say in Portsmouth is also.
Yep.
And so, to me, and I get it. I've heard folks say, hey, look, Portsmouth is, quite small, this and that. I still think it's unfair that you're not giving the people the majority of the power, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that do have the power. And I got to always remind our viewers, our voting is our power. We're the ones that, we vote to put these officials, these elected officials in office. Now in Chesapeake, we have clear as day, you know, there's one side that's always getting catered to 24/7. I say that because I live in that area. Then when I do a lot of community work in the underprivileged areas where there's food deserts, there's folks that seem so ignored, and it's unfortunate because we don't have right representation at all going saying, hey, look, this school is really, you know, looking, you know, worn down. They're having flooding issues on the side. It's crazy. And I've spoken with elected officials who is for keeping it at large. And I'm getting these cop-out answers of, well, if we don't keep it as at large, well, then I won't be able to help out everybody in the city like I want. And I'm like, well,
Not
that's
that they
come
were
on, that's
anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And keep in mind
And
too, I keep
Yeah.
in mind, Virginia Beach is uniquely different than Chesapeake, Norfolk, and Portsmouth. I'm actually at Regent right now studying for my master's of public administration. And in my first semester, I've had to take one of the toughest courses, which is research methods.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so that's where you really dig into data and how to properly get rid of bias and having internal validity. And so what one of the projects that I took upon myself was to look at the historical nature of Portsmouth, Chesapeake. It's if Portsmouth had never elected a white mayor, if Portsmouth had only had 3% of white candidates ever to be on city council in 50 years prior to a change in the voting system. And that's what happened in Virginia Beach. Now, we don't even want to go pre-1968, but from 1970 until 2020, I ran into 2022, you had 10 seats up every year, plus the mayor. So you had almost 15, let's say 16 cycles, 70, 74, 78, 82. We had a few special elections in there. So my argument to people that say race doesn't matter, political systems don't matter, and I've heard it, you know, I ran too early, you should have built more coalitions, on and on and on. All right, from 70 to 2020, Perry, Strayhorn, Rawls-Hammond, Wooten, and Rouse. In the 20th century, Senator Aaron Rouse and the Honorable Dr. Sabrina Wooten were the only two to win a seat on city council. Amelia Rawls-Hammond, when she won in 2022 with no competition in a minority district. So I want you to think about that. You're telling me in 50 years, and the largest city in the Commonwealth that has an 18% minority community just of black, that the candidates weren't qualified enough and they didn't win because they couldn't build coalitions and they just didn't have the juice. I don't buy that. And I say flip the script. Imagine if in Portsmouth or in Chesapeake, if that was the case. So you can argue that 3% of black candidates won over the course of 50 years. And I don't think it's because of competency and character.
Wow. Gotta think about that. It's hard to sink all that in, man. I mean, it was not hard, but it's just interesting to sink all that in. And I've always told folks, I'm like, look, if I was an elected official in Chesapeake, I'm on the side of work smarter, not harder. Now, would it be easier for me to, you know, look over 250,000 plus issues or 35,000? I'm saying I'm gonna try and get the smaller number. So again, and the key word is accountability, keeping folks accountable, and then having, you know, building that relationship between community and local government so that folks can know, like, when I have an issue, who do I go to? We don't know who, because we're gonna get passed on. And no, it's just to add on, you know, what you're saying, Chris, is extremely important. Before we let you go, look, I don't mind. I want to get your take on, you know, your predictions in this big election, you know, statewide, the gubernatorial, lieutenant governor, as well as attorney general. Now, I wanted to mention real quickly. Now, you during the primary season, you endorsed former mayor of Richmond, LeVar Stoney. So again, just to kind of put in perspective, you know, you came up short. You now have Senator Gonzalo Hashmi as the candidate. But just to, you know, I wanted to put that out there because you were involved in during that election cycle. What's your predictions on these races?
I think it's going to be it's difficult to make predictions, but I can say this. Candidate Sears, Lieutenant Governor Sears, has not, and again, I had the privilege of being one of the African Americans that supported the Youngkin Sears Mayeres ticket. And they approached me early. It wasn't because, again, this MAGA, it was, we owned a small business. Glenn and I had something in common. He was 6'7", I was 6'5", and we loved our wives. I didn't know the guy. I didn't know him. But nonetheless, he courted us. It worked out. He won. We attended the inauguration, got to meet everyone. But I saw a shift. And it's a challenge for Black Republicans. That shift always takes place. And one of the challenges that we have is because of Washington and how reckless some of the policies are, you have so many individuals that are fed up. And so I definitely see Abigail running away with the governorship. It could be tight. I don't trust the polls, but if the Democrats are able to mobilize and people are that fed up, I could see her take that. Winsome and John and what is it, Hashmi?
Senator
Hashmi.
I don't see Reed taking that. We know the hypocrisy going on with the outrage with Jay Jones and his text messages. I do think that's going to impact some moderate liberal white voters in the suburbs. They may go in and check one box and then check the other. I dealt with some of that bias when I ran. I had a liberal group that wouldn't even meet with me in my neighborhood because I was tied to Youngkin. And so that is a real threat to Jay Jones, is you'll have some women and men that will go in and check one and then they could check the other box. So that's a threat. In terms of the local races, I think Fagans and Tim Anderson are going to be in a dogfight. It's going to be who shows up. Tim reached out to me today. And this is a political show, and he asked if I'd help out, and I told him I'm going to play neutral. I heard that a lot when I ran. So neutral, you don't go up or down. You just go where the momentum goes. So I'm neutral. So I think that's going to be the big shift. And to be honest, as someone that wants to see us abide by the law and do the right thing in Virginia Beach, selfishly, I would like to see Abigail win, because I believe she would do the right thing as it relates to our charter change. And that's the most important issue for a lot of people in Virginia Beach. Is I didn't like how Youngkin played politics and vetoed this once we achieved the threshold of a majority of council, and then it passed the General Assembly. He still played politics. And so Askew doesn't have an opponent.
He's running unopposed. For I think second time in a row. Which must be nice.
But again, he took an L one year, so he came back. And so that's the thing about politics.
Green law.
It's respectable.
Green law,
So I think it's going to be a blue wave, and I'm not all the way to the blue side or the red side. I'm still running. I'm still independent. I think there's a lot of people out there that are tired of the hypocrisy on both sides.
We welcome you to open arms. We welcome you to open arms.
Do you think it could be enough of a blue wave that you might see either Cheryl Smith or Liz Richardson pull an upset? Cat Porterfield?
I don't know about Cheryl. I think Tata has just the money, and it's my district. She's good to go, I think. I haven't seen any fundraising efforts for Cat. Cheryl's name's been out there a little bit. Anderson, my neighbor's former delegate Bobby Matheson, and him. If you got him in an ad and they're putting some power behind that, they think they think they can get that race. I don't think Delegate Barry Knight will be challenged much. And so I think it's going to be a status quo in some of those. But again, if we can get a leadership change in Richmond that will listen to the people, again, forget red or blue. We just need some people that'll listen and do what the people want.
Last quick question, Chris. What about the Commonwealth attorney's race? Because that could be historic if Susan Richmond is elected. She'll be the first women elected, and she's a newcomer running against a man who's been in office for almost 13 years, 12.
Yeah. Well, her she used to live in my neighborhood in District 8. Her father was actually, I believe, a Commonwealth attorney or was an attorney. So she's not necessarily new to it. She does have some relationships to build on. Stolly, he's been around. The family has a good name. I was disappointed to see the Richmond team really didn't raise that much money, and that's always an indicator as the level of support, from the party at least. But I would lean that one's going to move towards Stolly, and in the same vein is I witnessed it. We had 15,000 people that voted for president in Virginia Beach last cycle, and then they skipped the local race. 15,000. So I don't have the confidence that everyone that walks in there and clicks the name Spanberger is going to click Richmond. I don't know. So that's a toss up. But if I was a betting man, which Conrad knows I don't play much poker, especially with tables that are fixed.
No pun intended to the NBA, by the way. I'm joking. Sidebar.
Terry Rose here in the house.
So
any final words that you want to throw in, Conrad?
Just in my personal belief that I have immense respect for the Honorable Chris Taylor over the many years that I've been trying to get community action team going, and we were literally analyzing Virginia Beach City Council, the school board members, and I think he scored the highest every single time we did it, because he was, by the book that we want politicians to be, the closest to it. And even on votes like Amazon Warehouse or one of the concerts coming to the beach, votes that you would not have expected simply on a party line basis, but a more community basis. So I always want to give out respect to Chris Taylor when I get a chance.
Thank you, Conrad. I appreciate that. I paid the price for making those votes.
No, and the same respect from here to you, Chris. I mean, we've chopped it up a few times on Messenger, man. I've always had the utmost respect. I had the opportunity of interviewing you when you were running as a candidate for council, and I had the opportunity to chop it up with you just a little bit after you won that seat, which a lot of folks did not think you were. And again, you are an individual who, at the end of the day, looked what's best for the people, and that's at the end of the day what's matter. So we would love to see you, even though I know you're in school right now, can you imagine? But we would love to see you back in politics, man. I don't know what level, but if that time comes, hey, look, contact us and Conrad, man. We would love to make a big mention about that.
I'll be in touch. I appreciate everything you all are doing, and I'll leave your audience with this. We're coming to a place where the division, if you think of ancient Rome, it wasn't the outside that ruined Rome. It was the inside. And we have to, I remember, you guys probably remember that photo that I took with President Biden, and I got torn up from the right. I got torn up from the left. But in that picture, and you know how rare it is for us as Americans to be able to meet our president, whatever they are Republican or Democrat. And that's why I went that day, because I was a representative of the city, and the president of the United States was coming to our city. And I have that photo in my home. My family has it in their homes, because it was so powerful, because I took his hand and I said, Joe, welcome to Virginia Beach. I represent the least diverse, most affluent district in the city, and I'm a Republican. And he started laughing out of his belly. He literally started cracking up. And he looked at me, he held my hand, and he said, Chris, the truth of the matter is we need good people on both sides. And that stuck with me, because I know his history wasn't always supportive of minorities. I can accept that. But in that moment, he was telling me, look, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. What I see in you is someone that wants to serve the people. And that stuck with me. And that's why I resigned. I felt like if I couldn't sit down there and serve without playing politics, without becoming friends with everybody, then it was time for me to go home to my number one priority, which is my family and my children. So I will be back. I will run again someday. But for right now, I have to prioritize the most valuable asset I have, and those are my children, because I don't want them growing up where they think they got to be red or blue. They need to be good humans. And so we need to do the best we can to attract good people to politics, and the parties can do what they do, and we'll be a better United States. So I appreciate y'all tonight. I have left the Republican Party. I'm a full-blown independent. I'm willing to lean a little bit left, a little bit right, but if it's not right and integral and honorable, I don't want to be part of it.
Hey, Arrington, if you start an independent party, there's worse persons to get on it than Mr. Taylor.
I'm telling you, look, I'm like, look, I felt like that was a campaign speech right there. That man, I'm about to write his name come November. I'm like, where is he at? Where I must just say the whole name, Chris Taylor, everywhere.
But Chris, I appreciate y'all.
Absolutely, take care, boss.
Yes, sir. God bless y'all.
Look, Conrad, I mean, what a way to end a 2-hour plus special pre-election special, man. We had the opportunity to speak with folks on all sides, really, of the aisle. I mean, we spoke from left, right, and in the middle. And I think that's, one of the big important things when it comes to just the climate in general is hey, we're voting on folks that's going to look after the people and do what's right, being a public servant. Keyword servant. Those who are here to serve and not be a party of themselves and worry about their own well-being rather than the constituents that put them in office.
I agree. And going into Tuesday night, I just hope that people don't feel like they missed their chance to vote. We've had a decent early voting season. I saw a lot of people at the polls because I spent a lot of my time doing morning shifts at Portsmouth City Hall. A lot of people came out to vote that time. I suspect a decent turnout. And if you haven't yet, well, you don't get a chance on Monday, but come out on Tuesday. You'll have from 6 a.m. All the way to 7 p.m. to do that.
Last minute predictions, man. Before we close, last minute predictions on this. On just say the state race, the gubernatorial lieutenant and attorney general. What's your predictions on it?
Spanberger by 8, Hashmi by 3, and I think Miyares wins out by like 1.
I say you said by 8 for Spanberger. I'm gonna say 11. I'm gonna up the ante a little bit. I'm gonna say by 11 on Spanberger. I'm gonna say 5 on Hashmi, and I'm gonna say probably 6. Hold on, no. I'm gonna say 4. I'm gonna say 4 Myers. I think we're gonna witness a split ticket, and I mean again, I hate it's not the fact that I hate to say it, but I'll hate to say it because of the legacy of Jay Jones. Jay Jones comes from a great legacy. Father served on all levels in office in the state of Virginia. Mother is also a successful attorney. He is an attorney as well. Well respected by a lot of folks. I have never spoken to him personally. I've had the opportunity to be in the same room with him before, and seems like a very humble guy, right? It just seemed like for a guy that's so sharp, why the hell would you just it's just like why? I mean, even if you're
why text it at all, and why text it to a Republican in the House who is going to sit on that until it's absolutely needed, which is October surprise season when you're running for a statewide race.
It's just President Trump, when he was here, and I know we got to close because we've been up here for a minute, but President Trump, when he was visiting here in Norfolk, the Norfolk Naval Base for, I think it was the 250th year, he brought that up. He brought up Jay Jones' text made national news on every level. Everybody is speaking on it, and you even have the president continue to repeat it, and it's just like it's that's tough. And so that's why I see it looking as a split ticket. As far as for the voting debate, I see it 10-1, obviously winning by a landslide. I don't know, I can't say for how many points, but it's going to win by a landslide. I mean, all the money
polls that have done before, when people were talking about how they liked it, I think got as high as 80% liked 10-1, which would be a significant landslide. And I want to see it win that big, to be honest, because of who on the special interest side is supporting the no.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see yes to 10-1 win that handily.
Also too, some of the, all 100 delegate seats are up for grabs. Now I'll speak on just a few, as Chris mentioned about the Tim Anderson and Figgins one. I'm gonna say Figgins by 2. I think it's gonna be very close. That's gonna be a tough one. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he doesn't pull it off personally, just because I know Anderson isn't a new face in the local politics. He's also an attorney as well, so you've seen him on television speaking as an attorney, and we also seen him on TV speaking as an elected official. So I see that one being very close. Let's see here. The Commonwealth attorney for Virginia Beach, I see that going to the current incumbent. AC Cardoza. That's going to be an interesting race, only because AC has been in office for quite some time, and he is the only black Republican in the General Assembly, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't even know if there's one in the Senate. So I think it's the entire General Assembly.
It's the entire General Assembly, and he's been holding the fort down for quite some time. So even though with these smear campaigns being brought against his name, I think he still goes victorious, maybe by 5.
5 would be outside competitive. VPAP says it's a competitive race, not leaning either way. And depending on the general thought of the ads, Virgil has raised like 2.4 million, if I recall. If I looked at VPAP correct, that was a lot of money.
But you know what, though? The thing is, in the political climate, we've seen folks raise the most and come out with the loss. So it all goes down to the vote, the number of votes. I mean, Roland Martin is coming to town this week, and he's going to be Roland Martin, very popular journalist, host of Roland Martin Unfiltered. He's been here before in the Commonwealth in Virginia, and he is has been working with the I won't say working, but he's been hosting a lot of forums where the Virginia Democratic Party has been having him tape his show live in different parts of Virginia. I believe he's coming to Chesapeake and Virginia Beach tomorrow, doing a live show in Virginia Beach, if I'm not mistaken. I don't get me quoting on the location, but I say all that. I bring him up because he, having that influential voice, even though Roland never says what side he leans. He says he's black leaning, which, I mean, hey, I'm all for that as well too. So it will be I say all that to say the Democrats have been putting out all the stops to get their folks elected in office. Now, as for in Chesapeake, Jay Leftwich has an opponent, Rodney Nickens Jr. Rodney's a young guy. He's he's a very passionate. Had the opportunity of having him on the program. Extremely knowledgeable man. I mean, he's somebody that I would love to see move forward. I would like to see him pull this one off, but District 90 is a very conservative district, and it has been for Jay for a long time. So I see that kind of being a far win for Jay. But hey, we might see an upset. We really don't know. And then lastly, sheriff's race. The sheriff's race is a big race between current Sheriff Dave Rosado, who had recently left the GOP. He left the GOP. He lost the Republican primary, and announced that he is continuing his race as a write-in candidate. He's running against the Republican nominee, Lieutenant Wallace Chadwick. Yep. And I think it's Wallace for the win. Say that because he did beat Rosado once in the primary. Now, even though that wasn't a majority, that was just a primary, but Dave is running as a write-in candidate. So for me, I'm like, ooh, it's going to be difficult for voters who might be waiting in lines to remember the name. Now Dave's face is everywhere. He has signage everywhere in red districts and blue districts, and he could continue to keep the reign of that position. But I see that maybe being in Wallace's favor. He has the full support of the police department. I've seen a lot of Wallace signs everywhere, and they're both great dudes. I will say Wallace is actually my neighbor. He lives in my neighborhood, and really, really cool guy, unapologetically conservative. But I mean, really nice guy. I know Dave Rosado very well too. Awesome dude. So that'll be a tough matchup between the two. Conrad, what do you think on the Commonwealth attorneys race? Because you happen to, as I mentioned in the beginning, you hosted a debate.
I think in much the same way that Wallace has a good chance of winning, because I still kind of see Chesapeake has a decent Republican stronghold on the local races, to which I think Mick can get a lot of the same votes that Wallace would get.
Okay.
But in knowing both Matt and Mick personally, and the incumbents always have an advantage, I'm not going to flatly say that Mick will win, but I could see it happening, and I could just as easily see Matt winning. I would probably want to lean toward the Democrat side from my own political perspective, but in the end, I'm not necessarily saying that one has a very confident way of winning. I think it might be very close between Mick and Hamill, with a slight thinking that Hamill will win.
Awesome. Well, look, ladies and gents, thank you for sticking with us for this long special. I mean, going almost on almost 2.5 hours, but thank you for sticking with us again. November 4th, this Tuesday, is the grand finale. We get to witness either folks staying in office or folks losing their seat and having a newcomer in office, regardless of which area you're in. It's going to be a huge race, and we'll be sure to keep you posted with that in real time through social media and things like that. So again, thank you so much for sticking with us, Conrad. Appreciate you, my friend. As always, be sure to tune into the SchezzWho show on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel. Growing platform filled with so many great episodes, man. I highly recommend it, and don't leave me hanging as well. Be sure to tune into the Arrington Gavin show.
Arrington Gavin show. Exactly.
That's right. We drop new episodes Monday through Fridays, and we just want to keep that good momentum going. So peace and blessings, y'all. Talk to you soon. We out. It's time to take a nap.